Thank you for sticking with us. We're about to move on to the main event, the main event show. Hey, speaking of main events, and speaking of dinosaurs, well, that was a pretty great unbox we had. Gatorbox actually broadcasts like almost opposite of BattleBots, and the last fight on every episode of BattleBots is called the main event. And I don't know if any of you guys watch BattleBots before Gatorbox, but holy shit, man. If you watched it, you know what I'm about to talk about, because we just mentioned dinosaurs. In the commercial break, right before the main event, the editors throw in something that's called a pod buster. And what that is it's to prevent someone from fast forwarding through all the commercials on their DVR, because this is something meant to look like part of the show. So you stop and you're like, oh shit, show's back on, and then you watch like at least one other commercial so that somebody gets paid. It's usually like some dudes in the pits, like after the last fight, he's like, oh man, that's a lot of damage. Tonight's Podbuster from tonight's episode, I knew something was wrong because it wasn't an interview, it wasn't like a 40-second pit segment or whatever like that. They went straight into a fight, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Because like you hear Chris Rose, the commentator's like, we got a rumble coming up. I'm like, wait, no you don't. You didn't mention like the thing. There was no rumble on the fight card tonight. What is going on? Everything is cut, so it's going by really fast. Like they didn't introduce the robots. They didn't say red team ready, blue team ready. It just showed some people pushing the buttons, and the countdown instead of 3, 2, 1 started at 2. I'm like, dude, they're fucking saving a lot of time. What's going on? And it is a rumble. Specifically, it was the tag team match where they had 2 robots in the red square, 2 in the blue square, and they just fight, one at a time. And you go back in your square, you tag your partner, he comes out and kicks some ass. Simple stuff. And there's some cuts. They showed like all 2 of the good hits from that fight, and then like the camera artificially shook, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? What is going on? And then the camera shakes again. They cut to the commentators, and like they just used like they recycled a thing from earlier in the show of like them reacting to like a knockout. They're like, whoa, what's going on? And the camera cuts back to the arena, and the most obvious CGI dinosaur foot steps into the BattleBots arena, and the camera shakes again. There's a pattern here. The fucking dinosaur steps in the arena, and while the robots are fighting, and steps on one of them, and knocks, like, as you can imagine, I was there to see the event live. This did not happen. At no point did a dinosaur come into the arena during this tag team. Nobody was like, T-Rex, get me, I'm coming in, I need your help. Like, there was no T-Rex waiting. They just fucking... It's product placement for the Jurassic World movie coming out next week. But that's what... Technically, they didn't even have a Podbuster because it was just an advertisement for this fucking movie. They had like a bunch of like B-roll of like when like the cameramen are filming the crowd, and because when you have the multi-camera setup, the camera's always on. Even if the little red light on top is not on, it's always on. They're taking feed from it. So, like when the guy films the guy in the crowd holding up his sign, and then the cameraman goes like this because he's done with the shot and points his camera down, they still have footage of him doing that, pointing the camera down. So they cut to this whole thing of like all these like interim shots of the cameraman like relaxing. So the camera goes over. It was so fucking stupid. Those teams, okay, either those teams that were in that fight are going to be really amused, or they're going to be really pissed off, because the editors sacrificing that fight just to make a commercial out of it probably means they're not going to actually air that fight, because that's it. For 3 of the robots in that fight, they have yet to make their season debut, so to have them, put in like B-roll status that's shitty. I really am looking forward to seeing what people thought about the giant T-Rex hazard that now exists it's now BattleBots canon that at least one robot has been knocked out from having been stomped on by a dinosaur. A regular magical unicorn. Dinosaur ad versus pizza ad. Who wins? Okay, so for those of you that don't know what the pizza ad is, back in 2015, when ABC produced the first new season of BattleBots, they had a sponsorship deal with Pizza Hut, and they had a special pizza for that summer. And what it was a pizza, and the crust was mini corn dogs dotted around the side, mini hot dog rolls or whatever, mini corn dogs. And they had some of the teams from the show go make the commercial, and they're like fighting with their robots because they're fighting to see who's gonna get the Pizza Hut pizza prize with the fucking hot dogs and the crust. I forgot that pizza was a thing, and like 2 years ago, I remembered. I'm like, wasn't there some fucking pizza? And I'm like, oh shit. So I called Pizza Hut on the phone to ask, because I went on the website and they didn't have it on the website, obviously. So I called the Pizza Hut, and I'm like, y'all guys still sell that pizza that has the hot dogs rolled into the crust? And this dude must have thought I was on the fucking best weed ever, because I realized after saying what I had said, I'm like, dude, there's no way you can make an intelligent sentence out of asking for the pizza with the hot dogs rolled into the crust. I never got to try that pizza. It's a real thing. If you go on YouTube, you type in BattleBots Pizza Hut commercial, you'll see it. It's not a Mandela effect. It's a real thing. So it's please do not call and harass your local Pizza Hut. But between the pizza ad and the dinosaur ad, which one do I think is better? I think the dinosaur ad is better just because of how much of a fuck you it was to everybody. Because at least with the Pizza Hut ad, they didn't like have an unaired fight that didn't make it to TV, and they had like a skit that they filmed elsewhere. The ref was like, time out, bring in the pizza. Here comes the Pizza Hut limited edition summer special pizza with the hot dogs rolled in the crust. Then the teams like fight over the, like, at least they didn't do that, and they didn't like rip footage from the show and fuck up a fight. Like now, whoever runs the BattleBots Wikipedia page is gonna have to be like, oh, okay, we had Double Dutch and Basilisk versus Bale Spear and some other fucking robot that I forgot was in the fight because I wasn't paying attention, because by the time I looked at who was in the fight, there was a fucking dinosaur. Basilisk loses by KO, being stomped on dinosaur 14 seconds into the match. Like, that's someone's gonna have to write that sentence, and that's hilarious.